Many people today are deeply interested in growth, healing, and consciousness, and yet burnout, confusion, and inner conflict are everywhere. So something isn't adding up. But maybe the problem isn't you. Maybe the problem is the model of spirituality you were handed. Hi, I'm Kat Swan. Here on this channel, we explore what it really means to live in inner union, integrating what was divided, returning what was never ours, and walking the path of balance with honesty. If you want substance instead of spiritual performance, you're in the right place. I spent years trying to become balanced, to reach this inner state of peace and knowing and happiness that is not tied to external triggers, trying to do the practices correctly, trying to be conscious, open, present, and still something in me felt divided. What I eventually realized is this: balance doesn't fail because we are incapable. It fails because we misunderstand where healing begins. If you've been on a spiritual path for a while, you may have noticed something strange. You understand more, you've read, practiced, and reflected, and yet, reaching the inner state of balance can still feel painfully difficult. Not because you are failing, but because most of the advice you've been given was never designed for how inner life actually works. We are taught how to behave. We are rarely taught how to relate to ourselves. And without the inner relationship, no system can come into balance. Many people I meet are sincere and honest in their practices. They meditate, they journal, and they try to stay positive. And still they swing between effort and collapse, clarity and confusion, devotion and fatigue. There is often a quiet thought underneath all of it. Why is this still so hard? Here is something I wish someone had told me earlier. Understanding yourself is not the same as including yourself. You can know everything about healing and still be divided inside. For most of my younger years, I was searching for calm, for peace, for relief. I tried to soften and surrender, but inside something remained unspoken. Something was not participating, but I didn't know it then. I didn't know yet know that parts of me were carrying life alone. You cannot relax a system where one side is still standing guard. Everything began to change the first time I truly encountered my inner masculine energy. Not as an idea, not as philosophy, but as a presence. At this day, during this life-changing visualization meditation, I felt how far my inner polarities were from one another. They were not collaborating, they did not understand each other, they had been surviving separately, and in that moment I realized the path to balance opens when my inner opposites stop being strangers and start to work together in harmony, consciously and acknowledging each other. From that day, things did not magically transform, but they began to move, slowly, honestly. Much of spiritual culture teaches us to cultivate states, peace, compassion, openness, transcendence. But if these are practiced mostly by the part of you that is already strong, then the strong becomes stronger and the unseen becomes more invisible. We accidentally perfect the side that is already overdeveloped. And when we wonder why we are still tired, so the imbalance deepens even while growth appears to happen. Here is the paradox. If you are predominantly feminine in your structure, true healing often begins with your inner masculine. And if you are predominantly masculine, healing often begins with your inner feminine. Because the neglected side carries unmet needs, frozen history, unlived life. And once that side begins to feel supported, your primary nature can finally exhale. What was overworking can finally stop compensating, and from there change becomes organic, not performed, not forced. A woman may try endlessly to heal her feminine, but if her inner masculine is exhausted, mistrusted, wounded, carrying ancestral burden, her feminine will never feel safe enough to open. So she works on the wrong door. Same for men in reverse. But when inner masculine and feminine begin to see each other, history becomes shared, responsibility redistributes, isolation softens, the system reorganizes. This is why people feel sudden relief, not magic, but redistribution of weight. Maybe you have heard the term hieroskamus or hieroskamus. It refers to the sacred union of two complementary forces, traditionally feminine and masculine, within the self. The state of hieroskamus becomes possible not when both are perfect, but when both are acknowledged, allowed, supported. Union is what happens when exile ends. And as with the relationship inside me began to repair, I also started noticing something else. Some of the pain I carried was not entirely personal. It had roots, histories, patterns older than my current life. Ancestral lines matter, because otherwise you will keep bleeding from a wound you never remember receiving. So I began my work, repairing timelines, meeting inherited grief, returning burdens that were never mine to carry. You see, often the younger generation takes on the responsibility of their earlier generations if those fail to take emotional responsibility for their actions, simply because the system needs a place for it to go. Also, children inherit not just trauma, they inherit which energy had to overfunction. It is not punishment, it is not destiny. It is simply an unfinished adaptation seeking completion. You see, often the younger generation takes on the responsibility of their earlier generations if those fail to take emotional responsibility for their actions, simply because the system needs a place for it to go. Also, children inherit not just trauma, they inherit which energy had to overfunction. It is not punishment, it is not destiny. It is an unfinished adaptation seeking completion. But it doesn't mean that you are not allowed to return it. You will just have to know how. Here's a small guided visualization for you to experiment with. and know that returning responsibility is not spiritual rebellion. It is a beginning of living from your own life instead of an inheritance. Find a comfortable position. Allow your breath to move naturally. There is nothing to force right now, only something to recognize. Bring your attention to any burden you have been carrying that feels older than your own life. A weight, a fear, a responsibility that seems too heavy. You do not need to know where it came from, only that it has been with you. Notice how you may have carried this out of love, out of loyalty, out of wish to belong. You carried it so the system could continue. Let that be honored. Now, gently imagine the people or the lineage from which this burden may have come. You are not above them. You are not against them. You are simply later. And in your own words, or silently, you may say, I see your pain. I respect what you endured, and I recognize that this fate is not mine to live. I give it back to you with dignity. Notice that returning is not rejecting. Love can remain. Connection can remain. But the burden can move. As it leaves, you might feel space, or emotion, or nothing at all. Everything is acceptable. Now gently ask yourself, if I am not carrying this, what is truly mine? Let whatever arises be simple. Breath, presence, aliveness. Feel your own life standing a little closer now, a little clearer. Take a slow breath in, and when you are ready, open your eyes. Family history often determines which part of us learn to survive alone. Healing begins when it no longer has to. Spirituality to me is not performance, it is alignment with the spirit. And alignment demands honesty. You may hide from the world for a while, but do not hide from yourself. Also, understand that positive thinking alone cannot heal you. It can comfort you, it can inspire you, but it cannot replace truth. To become authentic, you must be willing to see your sorrows, your fear, your pretending, your fragmentation, not to shame yourself, but to include yourself. This is not theory, this is lived physiology. Another thing, we must take responsibility for what is ours. But wisdom also means recognizing what never was. When ancestral weight is returned, life becomes lighter without becoming shallow. Somebody has once said, if you know how to guide people toward their authentic self, it becomes your responsibility to share this know-how. So, here I am. Not because I have finished the path. Frankly, I believe that we can never really finish it. We can only walk it and do so consciously, embracing the ups and downs and all the beauty of living the life as souls on this earth and always becoming better as human beings, more open, loving, and real. However, I am sure that what I offer is not the only way to do it. It is simply the way that became real for me and gave me some tangible results. If anything in this speaks to you, know that you are not broken. You may simply be trying to balance a system that has not yet met itself. And this relationship can begin very quietly, often only with recognition. If something here spoke to you, I invite you to subscribe and continue the journey. If something in this conversation felt familiar or touched a place that's been quietly carrying too much, that's often where real integration begins. If you are ready to move from understanding into experience, my deeper offerings are available on my website, created to support steady, structured inner work. I especially recommend beginning with a Return to Wholeness bundle. It's geared toward healing fragmentation across time and restoring inner harmony when something inside feels divided or inherited. If this resonated, that may be your next step. Whenever you feel ready, the links are in the description.